Right, welcome back. This is another XKR. I seem to be doing like just shitloads of XKRs at the moment, but I'm excited as hell about this one. We saw this car maybe 3-4 years ago. It was this car was one of the reasons I started sort of accepting that I could build a track-going XKR, which is like, I guess, essentially why we ended up with Cinderella. But I'm going to go through this car because we've just finished tuning this car because it's been a bit of a pain she's been, but I'll tell you for why in a minute. But I've got Dan here who I'm going to chat to about this car, who's essentially built it. The car is essentially an XKR X100. It's a chap by the name of Chris Saunders, lovely guy, and I have to say he got some passion to be. He's been playing with this car for a good many years now, and I think we're nearly at its final incarnation. But I will now turn the phone around and we'll have a chat with Dan. Right, this is Dan. Hello, Dan.
Hi.
Dan works at Swallows Racing. He is the racing car engineer. Hello, Dan.
Hi.
So, just let us know. So I'll start, actually. We saw this car, didn't we? It turned up at Swallows. Tom brought it over. Maybe was this like 3 years ago?
Yeah, before mine.
Before you started at Swallows. And it was on an Emerald, and we sort of tuned it with the original 4-litre. It's got a massive, great Kenny Bell supercharger in there. So we threw some injectors in there and it made far more power than I ever anticipated. I think it did 550 or something, which I was totally shocked by. Anyway, it went away for a while and it ended up like the engine was tired and it let go. So fast forward, Uncle Dan gets his hands on it from Swallows. So explain to us what you've done here, mate. Let's hear what's going on.
Right, so it's actually a 4.2 now. We decided to go with a 4.2 because the 4-litre has side-fed injectors. And ultimately you couldn't get a decent set of injectors for love nor money realistically, so we went with some Bosch, so they're IDs 1000cc injectors on it now, on a top fed rail. We've gone to AN8 fuel feeds, dual fed system, so we've got no risk of any sort of cavitation within the fuel lines and fuel rails. We've then gone with tubular manifolds with 8-point EGTs on them. Then it's a fully built engine in like standard internals, but balanced. Every single combustion chamber has been CC'd to exactly the same point, to the point I was taking sort of 0.1 of a gram off of a piston to make it so that it was the same as the rest of them. Cam timing we've kept standard because ultimately we found that was the best point for sort of peak torque and peak power on this, really. It is a non-VVT engine. We might have found something a bit more mid-range, but I don't really think it needs it. Then we ran it on the dyno and then found that the 92mm throttle body, I think it was strangling it at what, 520 or so?
Well, something like that, yeah. Just couldn't find any more power, could we? It was just flatlining.
Flatlined. So we then put 2 of them on.
So that's where we ended up with. We got these pair of throttle bodies. We ended up helping Swallows design this sort of CNC'd adapter there. Uncle Spike was to the rescue with that. So then we ended up with 2 throttle bodies. We got no negative pressure then in front of the charger. But then what did we find, Dan?
It then had so much air that it couldn't keep it cool.
So yeah, we were generating so much temperature. So we had a chat, didn't we, with Chris, and ended up with... So Dan's now fitted a 3-port methanol injection system. We've got 1 going in previous to the charger and 2 post. So that's kind of where we're at now, isn't it?
Yeah.
So we've used one of our, we developed a max ECU with a loom so that you could essentially run this engine in anything. And that's what we're running in this. It's got some various little bits and pieces like we've got a CAN bus instrument cluster in there and bits and pieces. So Dan's been back today and we've been messing around with this now for a couple of days with the methanol. So Dan, what power figure is it now?
709 horsepower.
So we're now at 709 horsepower, which is just obscene. I'm thinking this is probably the most powerful 4.2 charged on the planet. I don't know of any more.
We couldn't find any when it was like 660.
Right.
That, so.
So yeah, we'll send a video now of it running up on the dyno so that you can watch it and hear it, more importantly. So let's go to that. So yeah, that's where we're at now. The car is now running like well into the 700 horsepower. And consistently, yeah, we've sort of done 3 or 4 runs there back to back, and it's well into the 7s each time. So the rest of the car, Dan, like this is obviously it's not a standard car because obviously it's stripped out. And as I say, the first time I saw this, it was a track car already. I think Chris had been using it on the track at various occasions already. But what else have Swallows done to this to make it into an actual track car? It's not your average Clio or Mini, is it?
I mean, to be fair to Chris, he can pedal it as well. It's got our Tarox front brake setup, which has got a floating bell and rotor with our Corsa pad. He's got the braids, I think they're the Pro Race wheels on this one, which are fully forged, again, custom to this car. We've then gone through the handling, we've put quantum suspension on it when we were working.
We like quantum suspension.
And we've upgraded all the cooling up as far as we could. We've got a custom radiator in there. We've got one of our upgraded charge cooler radiators in there as well. It's got forged diverter valves in there as well as the standards. Ones aren't any good for this kind of power level, nor bolt into the Kelly bell. It's got one of your kind of custom looms, full roll cage in it, manual gearbox, of course.
So that still surprises me, actually, because that's essentially the same gearbox that we've got in Cinderella.
Yeah.
And it seems to be, you know, he's done multiple track days on that, hasn't he, with your clutch and flywheel system as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a hell of a tool, isn't it, really? Hell of a beast. Like, do you know what it weighs, some out of interest? Pure interest?
I think it's 1370.
Is it?
Yeah.
Good God.
I remember when we put it on the scales, it was like, that's light.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's lighter than Cinderella at the moment. Which is really interesting because I got plastic windows, although I have got a more comprehensive cage in fairness.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Max has allowed us to add in some protection. Obviously, I'm sort of real big on protection. We've got oil pressure protection. We've got EGTs per bank, as Dan said. We've got 2 wide bands, 1 per bank. Inlet temperature. So the methanol system is active all the time, up to a specific boost pressure. Once it goes beyond that boost pressure, it then starts to blend in. We've got tables in the ECU which consistently are obviously monitoring the inlet air temperatures. When the AEM system from the methanol has an output which goes into the Max, one of the digital inputs, and allows us to, the moment there's an error, it allows us to go into a different strategy for fueling and ignition timing, of course, even rev limiter. So it's consistently protecting itself, although nothing's foolproof. The jets, everything's going to have to be maintained and looked after, but essentially it should be as safe as it can possibly be. We're really excited to be using the Max system. Obviously, I'm always excited to be putting a Max system on anything, especially when it's a V8. But we have wired in you've wired in the wheel speed sensors, which I've connected into the ECU, and you know, we've applied some traction control. So I think it bloody needs it. I think it's going to be working overtime, that traction control strategy. But and the reason we need the traction control, which I'll overlay a photograph of now, which Dan had to pull off because it's creating lots of torques. So hopefully overlaid now will be a photo of said prop shaft. So this was a made prop shaft for the vehicle, and it's folded it to pieces like it was nothing. So we've now got an upgraded prop shaft, haven't we, Dan, on there now?
Yeah, it's now a 3-inch diameter throughout.
So there's all the torque. What was it? It's like virtually, well, it's peaking at like 630 foot-pound of torque. And it's as flat as you're going to get one of these. I think it's fairly ridiculous. So she's an absolute weapon. I'm really excited to see her out on the track. Hopefully, you know, I've got various ideas that I want to do with Cinderella, which is air to air. So maybe we'll speak to Chris, see whether he wants to go air to air at the same time. Because, you know, like I say, I'm going to hopefully get a different supercharger, because this has properly excited me. So yeah, thanks for joining us. Say bye, Dan.
Bye.
Hello, bye, Dan. Cheers, bye-bye.